This one is backed by popular demand. So we are appreciative to Gina Johnson for coming back and talking with us about negativity bias. And as you can see in the title, train your brain to navigate negativity. Negativity bias being the innate human tendency to be 3 to 5 times more influenced and affected by negative events than positive and or neutral ones. So a little bit about our speaker. She is a University of Illinois alumna who has a master's in social work from the University of Illinois and is a licensed clinical social worker. She has 20 years of experience helping people of all ages improve the quality of their lives, which is something that I appreciate about her, and somebody in our community who has been a source of a lot of good. So we look forward to hearing from you, Gina. And as I mentioned earlier, in case you're just joining us, feel free to drop your information or your contact in the chat, as we do like to know who's at our events. But also, I know that our speakers appreciate knowing who's here. So if you have comments or thoughts or questions, feel free to drop that in the chat as well. So thanks everyone for being here today. And Gina, I will throw it over to you.
All right. Thanks so much, Laura. And thanks for having me back. And thanks for all the good you do in our community as well. I really appreciate it. I love coming to Research Park. Well, this time coming via Zoom to speak with the interns and spend time with all of you. And especially about this topic of negativity, because there's actually a lot of really practical, accessible things that we can all do immediately after this talk that will help us to better deal with negativity bias. So we're going to jump in, and I've got a lot of information to cover today. So please, if I start going too fast, feel free to ask questions or ask me to slow down, because I love this information and I love the research. And I want to get as much out as I can, but I do admit that I sometimes go too fast with it. So anyway, Lindsay is also here, Lindsay Heights, who works at Blueprint with us, and she is running the chat and slides for me today. And Lindsay can also field any questions or alert me to any questions that are in the chat. So please participate. We like participation in our talks. So I really want you guys to get something out of this. That's so important to me. And like I said, to have very practical tools and some skills that you can start working on immediately. So with that being said, I'd like for you to get out a piece of paper or something to write on. And we're going to start by having you do just a little bit of reflection. I know that we've probably all been in different meetings today, and I think it's nice to just settle in and drop into our bodies and really get present in what we're working on right now, and to start thinking about how negativity has impacted you in the last day or so. So what I would like for you to do is take out your piece of paper, and just in the middle of that piece of paper somewhere, I would like for you to write down one negative thing that you have encountered in the last day. I'm guessing that there's been at least one negative thing that you've encountered. And we're going to do a little exercise with this. We're going to give you 2 minutes to write down around that issue on the piece of paper anywhere. I'd like for you to write down just thoughts that come to mind about this negative situation, possibly things that you are working on with it, just whatever comes to your mind. And we will give you like I said, 2 minutes. And Lindsay, will you run the timer for us?
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, let's go ahead now and start writing. And Lindsay, if you could start timing, that'd be great.
1 minute left. Okay, time's up.
All right. So now what I'd like all of you to do is go ahead and either turn that piece of paper over or grab another piece of paper. And I would like for you to write another negative thing that you've encountered in the last week or a couple of days, just something that stands out. And this time we're going to do this a little bit differently. I want you to still write down the things that come to mind about this negative event. And I'm going to just read a few things to you while you write. And Lindsay will run the clock for us again and let us know when our 2 minutes are up. So go ahead and write down just whatever comes to mind about this negative event. And as you start, what I would like for you to do is just take a breath. Take a breath from your stomach and make your exhale longer than your inhale. And I'd like for you to feel the floor underneath your feet. Feel the chair underneath your legs. I'd like for you to feel the pen or pencil or whatever you're writing with in your hand. And just notice any sounds that you hear in the room that you're in. Notice the feel of anything that your arm is resting on. And I'd like for you to keep going back to one of those contact points, one of those things that your body has contact with as you write. So whether it be the floor or the chair or the table or desk. And as you write, just feel that contact point. And continue to breathe. And feel that pen in your hand.
And time's up.
Okay. All right. As you come to a close with this exercise, I'd like for someone to share whether or not they noticed anything different in the way that they felt or in the way that they were thinking between these two exercises. Did anyone notice anything differently? Did you notice that you had more negative thoughts in one exercise or the other? Or you had less thoughts in general in one or the other?
We have a shy group today.
I could talk.
All right.
I'm Ade, I'm the HR intern, and what I noticed was that I was able to like pay more attention to like my surrounding and actually like hear everything that's coming in and just be able to like release and more be calm.
Yeah. So you were able to get more access to a calming response, it sounds like,
Yes.
inside of you. Yeah. Yes. Would it be safe to say that you didn't feel as like maybe constricted within your body and your mind?
Yes, definitely.
Yeah. Okay. Anyone else have anything to add?
Gina, we have one in the chat from Lisa that she noticed a movement away from sorrow, and that she did have a foundation of truth and light and hope for change.
And we have some great answers here. Yeah, both of these answers are really good, really deep. Yeah, I love it. This is right up my alley. Okay. So we're going to get into some science in a few minutes around like why that second activity was supposed to give you the feelings that at least the two participants who shared with us just now shared, in that we are supposed to feel a little bit more relaxed in that second one. Access different thoughts, have more access to relaxation response within our bodies and within our minds too. And like I said, I'll get into the whys of that in a few minutes within the talk. I like to say that everything in terms of the tips that I give today and strategies, they are backed by science. I will give you the researchers who came up with these strategies because none of the researchers are me. And that way, for any of you aficionados out there who like to go and look this stuff up, you have resources that you can dive into after this talk. But we do our best to make all of these resources free and, like I said, just readily acceptable, because I think it's really important to have, I call them micro practices that we utilize all throughout our days that help us with our mental well-being. So let's go ahead and dive in and start talking about this negativity bias. In order to really do a good job in talking about negativity bias, we have to first really understand what it is. So we're going to talk about what this is in a little bit more depth, and we're going to talk about exactly how it impacts us. We're going to give you a framework for how negativity bias impacts you. And we're going to, like I said, talk about how to deal with this in an effective way and ways that are all backed by scientific research. So things that are proven to work. So negativity bias, like Laura said at the beginning of the talk in the introduction, negativity bias is the human tendency to be 3 to 5 times more impacted and affected and even drawn to negative events and things, and sometimes even people, than we are positive, neutral events and people. Um, and it's kind of interesting because I think most of us would say, oh, I really don't like negative things, though. Why would I be drawn to negative things? And that is a good question, because we are all drawn to negative things. And I think that probably even more so, unfortunately, in the last year with everything that all of us have been through with COVID-19 and the fallouts from COVID-19. So we are all drawn to negativity more than positivity and neutral events because of our survival brain. So this negativity bias developed within us in order to protect us. I like to say that the human brain and body is designed to survive and not necessarily to thrive in a way that makes us feel happy or makes us feel a sense of inner freedom and inner peace. Those three things, happiness, inner freedom, and inner peace, really do take work on our part. And it's a constant work that we have to do. It doesn't have to be, for necessarily long hours every day. But like I was saying earlier, having micro practices that we do for even 1 to 3 minutes throughout every hour really will make a big difference in the quality of our lives and the quality of our days. So we developed this negativity bias really from our ancestors who were living very different lives than us, and their lives were literally at stake, every day. They were obviously engaging in more warfare than what we engage in our Western society. And they had to be on the lookout for the threats that were in their environment. So this survival brain developed to really be looking for threats in any environment that we go into. And like I said, our brains are still doing this today. So even though we're not living, in the exact same civilizations that our ancestors lived in, our brains are still the same in terms of the ways that they're designed. So the survival brain, what happens when we walk into any environment, or when someone new walks into our environment, or something changes, the survival brain is always doing like a scan, kind of look at it like a flashlight or something, scanning the environment for any possible threat. It's also scanning the environment, though, for anything that is possibly safe. And so I always look at it like the survival brain is always on the lookout for threat, safety, threat, safety. Okay. And it's really these days looking at threats on a continuum of negativity. So we can think anywhere from very small negative things that happen, like someone gives us kind of a weird look and we start making up some stories in our heads, to a medium negative thing that happens where someone cancels plans. We're looking forward to going out with them and they cancel plans on us and it's disappointing to us. And then to larger negative things that happen in all of our lives, like maybe getting reprimanded at work about something, or experiencing something tragic like a death or a serious illness with someone that is close to us or within ourselves. So this negativity exists on a continuum, and our survival brain is always looking for this possible threat to our survival, and then alerting us to, okay, how are we going to protect ourselves? So as soon as the survival brain picks up that there's any kind of threat, it alerts the nervous system and says, hey, you got to wake up here. You've got to protect this person from some danger. And it's a myth that's out there in our society that this fight or flight response only goes off for really big things in our worlds. No, it goes off all the time in small, medium, and large ways. So our survival brain is alerting our nervous system all day, every day, to lots of maybe little threats, medium threats, and big threats. And most of the time, we're not aware that this is happening. We're not conscious that this is happening until either we are too tired and we've reached our capacity and we finally have the last thing hit and we say, okay, I've had it. I'm gonna deal with this now. And then we notice. But I guarantee that if we walked backward, we would see, oh, there were lots of little things that happened to me all throughout the day where this fight or flight response was going off. Okay. So getting clear on that is really important, and starting to understand that your survival brain is looking for those threats, and it's also looking for safety. And we're going to talk more about that in a few minutes, how we can perceive safety more so. But it's always looking for those threats and finding those threats. And we're spinning these stories all day long. And we usually aren't aware that we're doing this. So as the stress response goes off, like I said, the nervous system is getting alerted. And Lindsay, if you could put that nervous system slide up. Yeah, thank you. So this autonomic nervous system is what links the survival brain to the rest of the body. So it's why when we do notice something that's negative, we get a response from the rest of our body. So the sympathetic part of that branch, it helps to increase our heart rate. It helps to increase our muscle tension. It moves our blood flow away from our stomachs and into all of our large muscle groups. And it's literally preparing us to fight. And usually in today's world, it's fighting with our words or fighting on the computer, or to flee. So it could be, again, actually like walking out of the room, maybe you do just run away. Or it also could be just like shutting off the phone or leaving the website that you're on. So we flee in lots of different ways too, is my point. And the other thing that we often do is we just submit. We say, okay, there's nothing I can do here. I'm kind of tired of this. And we just go along in order to get out of the situation, hopefully, and just wait out the situation. and we agree, even though inside, everything inside of us is saying like, I don't agree with this at all. In fact, this really upsets me. So the simple sympathetic branch is what gets alerted when that threat detector picks up something negative. Okay, makes sense? Yeah. Now, that actually protects us in a lot of ways when those really big things are happening, but the problem becomes that this is going off all the time for much smaller things that we really don't need all this energy for. Okay, and what's supposed to happen is we're supposed to get that energy, we're supposed to run that energy through our bodies basically, and then we're supposed to get access to the parasympathetic, or what I call the brakes part of this nervous system. And this part of the nervous system is the part that helps us perceive that safety, that helps us get that safety response. Okay. So the calming hormones are then released. We feel like we can relax, but also it's really important to note that when we have access to this parasympathetic branch, we really get access to a better line of thinking too. We have more access to our words, we have clearer thoughts. We also then can look at the world in a more hopeful and optimistic way. So it's really, really important. And in the modern world that we're living in right now, most of us get stuck in that sympathetic branch all day, every day. Like I said, these little things build up, and then we're not getting enough access throughout our days to this brakes part or the parasympathetic part of the nervous system. And what's happening then is the threat detector goes on overdrive, and we're thinking negative things, and we're spilling negative things out into our environments over and over again because we're really not aware of what's causing it. And a lot of what we're told to do with negativity actually doesn't work, and it makes it worse. So, getting the body involved is what I'm going to talk a lot about today because it's one of the best ways to regulate this nervous system. So, once we get stuck with this accelerator on and we go throughout our days too in touch with the accelerator and not in touch enough with the brakes, what happens is the nervous system gets dysregulated. And that's when you're going to notice that you feel more agitated, you feel more irritated. You're going to notice that the negative things do stick out to you more. And you'll notice that you might even have some overreactions to things that you say, like, oh, this is not in proportion to the thing that I got triggered by, or my reaction is not in proportion to this thing that I was triggered by. So the nervous system is controlling all of this. It's controlling how we feel and how quickly we feel it, or how long it lasts too. Any questions on any of that? Because that's a lot of information and it's pretty complex, and I'm trying to distill it down into really simple terms, but still do the information justice. All right. So, in understanding how negativity impacts all of us specifically, we're going to get more granular and go into a framework, like I said earlier. Because in order to really work with negativity, or really work with anything, we have to have a language for what we're working with. We have to have a language, and we need frameworks to plug into so that we can work with ourselves. And that's one of the things that I've noticed throughout my career in mental health, that in our Western society, we don't have a lot of really good language for what's happening inside of us. And we then do not have a lot of frameworks to utilize in order to make things better for ourselves. And that's something that's been really important to Lindsay and I, is to develop practical language for people to utilize, and practical frameworks to utilize, like I said, on an hourly basis, so that you're implementing these practices into your life, just like you're implementing physical practices into your life, because this stuff is just as important as your physical health, and ends up impacting physical health as well. So the first framework that we have and that we're going to get into is the negativity feedback loop. So the negativity feedback loop is what happens to all of us as soon as one of those threats is detected. And remember, it can be like a really small threat too, like someone looking at us in a weird way. So let's just say we're walking down the hallway at Research Park in Enterprise Works, and we notice that someone that usually is smiling at us and very friendly just kind of looks at us in what we would consider a strange way that's off for them. And right away, our body is going to react to that. Even if we are not aware that it's happening, our body is reacting because that nervous system gets alerted. You may be one of those people that is very aware that your body responds. I'm one of those people. I notice that my heart rate increases. I notice that my muscles start to tighten up. I notice that my face might get red. And then what happens is lots of thoughts start happening. Now, you might be one of those people that says, well, I notice the thoughts first, and I don't think anything happens to my body, but I know that I really get preoccupied by my thoughts. So our brains love stories, right? And even what research shows, which I think is really interesting, is that even if the story is inaccurate, our brains will reward us internally with neurochemicals that feel good for having a story about what's happening, right? So our brain is going to create a story about whatever is happening in our environment. So the thoughts start going like, oh my gosh, like maybe that person's upset with me because I missed that meeting that we had, and on and on and on. And then we start to have emotional responses. We might start to feel worried. We might start to feel angry. We might start to feel confused. But the point is, all of this happens within this feedback loop, and each piece impacts the other. So it keeps going and going. Now, like I said earlier, each of us have a different entry point into this feedback loop. So for some of us, it will be the body. For others of us, it will be the mind. We're going to notice that, oh yeah, like my thoughts really got me going, and then my body started to get activated, and then I started having some emotions about this. The reason this is so important is, like I said earlier, in order to effectively work with anything, we have to identify it. Okay. And I think the more specifically we can identify something, that's going to determine then how effective we are at working with it. So as soon as we start to notice that, oh, yeah, like my body is heating up here, my body is reacting, my heart's beating faster, or my face feels a little bit red, that is a good clue to you that, oh, I'm getting into that negativity loop. The reason I say it like this is what I've found in working with thousands of people throughout the years is most of us walk through our days unaware that this is happening. And when we're not aware that this is happening, we start to amplify the negativity. Okay. So negativity is contagious inside of us and it's contagious outside of us. I'm not going to talk about that today. We're going to stay focused on the internal. So if we don't deal with that negativity, it's like spilled milk. All right. It's just going to keep going inside of us. And it's going to start with one area of our lives. Like, yeah, I had this person look at me weird. I think they might be upset with me. We start to feel off. We're not dealing with that though. And so then it goes into, I think that my friend didn't text me back when I text last night. I wonder what's up with her. Okay. And it just keeps going like that. So I like to say that we magnify this feedback loop is what happens when we're not aware that we're in it. All right. Now, for those of you who are sitting there saying like, yeah, I don't think I'm aware when I'm in it at all, there are some important clues to look for. And Lindsay, can you go ahead and put on the next slide that shows us some of those clues? All right. So if this has been happening to you a lot, you're going to notice that you probably have high blood pressure. You might have some anxiety or depression or reaching for things to escape yourself. So addiction, it kind of gets a bad rap in our society. One of the official terms, definitions of addiction is continued use despite adverse consequences. So addiction isn't just addiction to a substance like a drug or alcohol, it can be, addictions are behavioral too. So we can start reaching for our phones all the time, and we continue to do this to escape ourselves despite whatever adverse consequences that we may be having. We may notice that we're gaining weight, notice that our heart is like out of rhythm, that we feel our heart rate a lot. That's a sign that you've been in this loop a lot of muscle tension. I have a lot of people that come in here and they tell me that, their backs are really sore, their necks are really sore. So the body's taking this stuff on is what's happening, or just like tightness in the chest. That's another big one that I hear quite a bit. And again, that's a sign that you've probably been in this loop and just not aware that you're in the loop. And that's okay. Like, I don't want you beating yourself up about that. Uh, because again, we're not taught these things within our society. We're taught to just kind of buckle down and push through life, and that doesn't work. So the next slide, with some tips to look for or some clues to look for, is if you just notice that you're getting stuck on negative comments that happen around you, notice that you're having a lot of negative self-talk, difficulty concentrating, or just foggy thinking. That's one too. And then the last one, the emotions. So just easily irritated, short-tempered, less intellectually effective, less quick on your feet, and just not rational. So really being on the lookout for any of those signs. And I always recommend like not waiting until, you're having necessarily like signs. We're all human beings. So we are going to get upset, and to some degree that actually helps us, because our feelings signify needs inside of us. But what we want to be paying attention to is the signs that we've become activated in some way. Okay. So that we can start working with that nervous system and regulating the nervous system instead of ignoring the nervous system. All right. Any questions on this material so far?
I see a question in the chat. Hold on a second. I'm just gonna read it. Has there been any research done on how COVID has impacted reading social cues, because people are wearing masks, and so sometimes you can't see their facial expressions the way you used to, and it's caused some stress?
Yeah. I'm not aware of any studies. That's something that is a really good question, and I will look into. I know that there are so many neuroscientists and psychologists right now performing just thousands of studies on how all of this has impacted us socially and emotionally and psychologically. But that's a really good question. I'm sorry that I don't know.
One other question, are addictions necessarily bad, or is it only bad to the point where it controls judgment or decision making?
That's a good question. Yeah. So one thing that I like to say is that whatever you're doing in terms of what the addiction is, whether it be exercise or drinking, it's never really about that. It's always about the why. Why are you doing it? And it's about, how is this impacting my life? So if it truly ends up being an addiction and you are having a lot of consequences from that addiction, then I would say that there's a lot of negativity that you're bringing into your life as a result of the addiction. Addictions are, like I said, are always about us trying to escape from some pain. Gabor Mate is my favorite researcher on addiction. He is a medical doctor and a psychiatrist, but he is a world-renowned speaker on addiction, and any of his books are amazing. He's an amazing resource. He has a lot of videos that are free that are out there too. He's on a lot of podcasts too. So if you just even go on to like one of the main podcast forums and type in his name, a lot will come up. He's a good person to listen to. So getting back to then what we can do about working with this negativity bias, and again, how it specifically impacts us. So we went through and defined the framework that we're all impacted physiologically, intellectually, and emotionally. So even if you say that, okay, I am a person that notices I have more negative thoughts than necessarily feeling all of this in my body, the way out of the negativity is still going to be through your body. But it's developing that self-awareness, the awareness to notice when you're in that loop, so that we can start working with, your body, and you can start working with your nervous system, because the whole point is always to get back to regulation with the nervous system, and also to perceive safety and a sense of safety. Okay, so what I'd like for you to do is just take a minute to write down what you think your primary response is when you experience something negative. Do you think about things more? Do you get caught up in your thoughts? Do your thoughts then become distracting to you? Or is it your physiology? Does your body react, and does your body possibly become distracting to you? Or is it an emotional response that becomes distracting to you and that takes over for you, or that alerts you first? People have told us that sometimes it's a combination of two of these. So if it's a combination of two of these, that's absolutely okay. I really believe that we all are very unique, and it's important to honor your uniqueness, and to really just drop in and be honest with yourself about what is happening. So name your primary response. Just write that down somewhere and take note of it, so that you can be on the lookout and aware that after you leave this talk, when you experience something negative, that it's happening to you. Okay, I always like to say that awareness is the entry point into everything, every effective treatment, every effective solution. We first have to have awareness. And so that's why we're really hitting home like pretty heavily on awareness, because without this awareness, we can't do anything. Okay, so once you have the awareness, then you can get into one of these 5 strategies that we're going to jump into right now. The first strategy is one that is really good to utilize if you're in a meeting and you're sitting down and you just can't leave the situation that you're in. It's also a really good one to utilize if the negative thing just happened and it's considered to be more of like the small to medium negative thing. Okay. And this one is just getting in touch with your contact point. So it's exactly what we did in that second circle exercise at the beginning of the talk today. It's you taking a breath after you've noticed that you're in this negativity loop, but dropping into your body and fully inhabiting your body. Okay. So just really feeling the energy moving throughout your body. We're very much trained in our Western society to live from the neck up and to really be in our heads. But our bodies have a tremendous amount of information to offer to all of us in every moment. The other thing that we like to remind ourselves and all of you is that your body is the only thing that's present in each moment. And yes, our bodies do store memories, and our bodies are aware of things that have happened to us in the past, but the body is really the only thing that is in the here and now the majority of the time. Our minds are all over the place. Our minds are in the future and in the past. But if you want to tap into the moment, get into your body. So first step is fully inhabiting the body. And like I said, even if you're one of those mind people, one of those thought people, that's your primary response, you still are going to use the resources within your body to help you out. Okay. So you get into your body, and then you just pick one contact point. So one thing that your body has contact with, and you breathe, and you just focus on that one contact point. Okay. Now, it could be, like I said, when we went through that second circle activity, the chair, just noticing the chair. It could be the floor underneath you, just feeling that floor underneath your feet. You could choose to hold something. Like I do have some people that I work with that go on and give talks different places, and they get really nervous about doing this. And so they like to hold something that's kind of heavy, in their hand. And they just focus on that as their contact point. Lindsay and I like to teach improv here at Blueprint, and we train everyone in this psychological skill as soon as they come to our improv class, so that they have something to utilize when we start doing the improv and the nerves start to kick in, so they can go right to the contact point. So having that contact point is really helpful. Any questions on that at all? Now, if you experience something negative and you deem it to be one of the smaller or medium things, what research shows is that pure emotion lasts 90 seconds. Okay, there's a Harvard neuroscientist who discovered this in a study a while back. Her name is Dr. Jill Bolt Taylor. And if you look her up, there's lots of information on her. She has some pretty interesting studies about this. But what she found is that most of the time we prolong our emotions by adding on to what has happened with our thoughts. So we start again creating these stories, or we start reflecting on other things that have happened. So we get upset about something, our survival brain notices a threat, right? Could be something, a small negative thing, and then our mind takes off. But if we can bring ourselves back to the moment and say, can I just be with this thing that just happened right now? And what I'll do is I'll set a timer for 90 seconds. Okay. And I'll say, I'm just going to let myself feel this for 90 seconds and name the emotion. Okay. Get really specific about the name. Okay. Again, the more we can identify what's happening to us, the more effective we are at working with it. So if you say, all right, I'm going to let myself feel this for 90 seconds, notice where you feel it in your body, name what the emotion is. I actually look at an emotions sheet that Lindsay and I have in a book that we wrote that just has like our 27 main human emotions. And I'll make myself say which ones I'm feeling in the moment after something happens. And I let it just pass through me then. And it really works. Yeah. Now, this does not work for the big things that we go through in life. And I'm not even suggesting that you try this. Like if you go through a tragedy or traumatic event, this will work against you and will be harmful. Okay, so this is not for trauma, and it's not for big grief things. It's for these like thin slices of negativity that happen all throughout our days. All right, so we've got the contact points down. That's a good one. Like I said, if you can't get up and leave your seat, if something has just happened and you're not having that much of a response, but you are having a response, right? Now, oftentimes what happens is we're in that loop, like I said earlier, and we've perpetuated that loop and we've magnified our negativity and our negative emotions inside of our bodies. And so we've got all this energy that builds up. And when that's the case, it's going to take us longer to get out of the negative emotion. And usually the rule of thumb is around 20 minutes that it's going to take us. And that is when forward movement really helps us. So forward movement, engaging in any kind of forward movement, what that does is forward movement decreases the energy in the amygdala, which is that threat detector in the survival part of the brain, for those of you that are really interested in the mechanics of how we all work. So going out and going for just a short walk really helps. A lot of times if I've had some pretty heavy appointments or meetings, or we do a lot of like 3-hour talks or half-day talks, right afterward, I'll go out and I'll just walk. And I can really feel myself just detaching from more of the negative thinking and that worry center of my brain. So it really makes a difference. Andrew Huberman, who is a neuroscientist at Stanford. He is the one that found this. He's a researcher there. He has a great Instagram page called Huberman Labs, where he teaches neuroscience in really basic ways online. I highly recommend his page if you're into this stuff. So forward movement, it really helps. The next one, number 3, is also by Andrew Huberman. He came up with this at his lab as well. And it is engaging your peripheral vision. So oftentimes when we experience negative things and we kind of get stuck in that loop, what happens is our vision becomes constricted. Our vision becomes constricted. And then what happens is that our bodies tighten up and our minds tighten up too. So whenever your body is tense, you can guarantee that your vision is probably constricted and your thinking is definitely constricted too. The great thing about knowing this is that the opposite is true. So the more we expand, so even just expanding our bodies, but mostly expanding our visual field and getting access to that peripheral vision is really important. And it gets us access to that safety response in the body. And that's really what the forward movement is doing too. And the contact points are too. They're getting us in touch with that parasympathetic branch. So that says, hey, we're safe, everything's okay, we can relax now. So going out to wide open spaces is the easiest way to do this. So going out to one of those cornfields that's right by or behind your buildings over there, that is just a fantastic way to practice this. It's why oftentimes we feel calmer at a beach where we go out and we see that beautiful horizontal setting. This is why I absolutely love going out and taking pictures of sunsets, because I can just feel myself get access to that parasympathetic branch. And remember, once we get access to that branch, we are automatically going to start thinking differently. Okay. And the last one is a pretty obvious one, and it's more preventative, and it is taking time to write down some of your good things every day, or to have some kind of gratefulness practice. We call it our good things practice. And this one, though, there's a trick to it. You have to spend at least 12 seconds with the good thing. Okay. So most of us tend to blow by our good things that happen during the day. We're like, oh, yeah, that was nice, but I've got to get to the next fire to put out. Right. Or I'm still preoccupied with this negative thing that happened in my last meeting. And we don't really take stock of the good that's happening. So Rick Hansen is another neuroscientist that I really like, who studies a lot about the physiological and neurological effects of negativity. And he had a study that showed that our bodies and brains don't fully take in something good until we've spent 12 seconds with this good thing. So it's really good to ask yourself some questions about it. All right. Like, why do I like this good thing? Why does it matter to me? Who's someone that I could share this with? Sharing the good thing with someone else, research shows, does intensify those good feelings and good neurochemicals that we get in our bodies. So that's very important. But doing this on a regular basis does prove to be a buffer to stress and a buffer to negativity as well. I started out a long time ago, like writing down 10 good things a day when I was going through a difficult time in my life. And it just became a template for my thinking. And that was a really nice thing to do. And it really worked. It was really effective. I don't do that so much anymore, but I do at the end of every day. I either write down 3 good things that happen, why they matter, where I feel it in my body when I think about this good thing, and someone else that I think would like this or that I could share it with. Sometimes I just will lay in bed and think yeah, what were the good things that happened today and why did they matter to me? So making a point though to carve out this practice and actually making it part of your day is really important. And remember that 12-second rule. We really do need to spend 12 seconds with the good thing. When Lindsay and I did talks in person before COVID, we used to have the participants shake hands for 12 seconds because it really highlighted how long 12 seconds is. We really do see that, oh man, I'm probably not spending 12 seconds with my good things when I notice them. We do have a nice little card that we recently made that we could get to all of you. I'd like to give it to you guys. It's just a nice reminder. It has some questions to ask yourself, and it has some other research references on there. So you could like go to those places and read more about this if you're interested in this. But maybe Lindsay could help me get that card out to all of you. Yeah. So we went through a lot of information here. I feel like I threw a lot at all of you. And I'm interested in hearing any questions, any feedback. Yeah, I'd love to hear your thoughts.
How do we keep ourselves accountable? So if you guys need to leave, go ahead and leave.
Yeah.
But to make sure we got that out to you.
Yeah. No, the best way to keep yourself accountable, and research shows this too, is to enlist a support buddy to do it with, enlist a friend, get like a couple of gratitude friends, like we're going to do this, even start a text threads, something like that, start it on one of your social media feeds, but get other people involved. That's the key to accountability.
Great. Thank you so much. Well, we appreciate everyone's time today. I hope you took some actionable steps away, as Gina mentioned from the beginning, and we'll see you all next time. Have a great week, everyone.
All right.